The studio lights of Good Morning America blazed brightly on that crisp October morning in 2025, casting a warm glow over the sleek modern set where anchors Robin Roberts, Michael Strahan, and George Stephanopoulos sat poised with their signature smiles. The camera panned smoothly to the guest entrance, where Denzel Washington, the iconic actor known for his commanding presence in films like Training Day and Malcolm X, strode in with his trademark charisma, dressed in a tailored navy suit that accentuated his broad shoulders and confident demeanor. At 70 years old, Denzel looked as vital and intense as ever, his salt and pepper beard neatly trimmed and his eyes sparkling with the fire of a man who's seen the heights of Hollywood and isn't afraid to speak his truth. The audience, a mix of early-rising New Yorkers and remote viewers tuning in for their daily dose of celebrity gossip and lighthearted banter, erupted in applause as the band played a snippet of his latest film's theme, a soulful jazz piece from his directorial triumph, The Piano Lesson, which had just premiered to critical acclaim at the Toronto International Film Festival. George Stephanopoulos, ever the polished journalist with his sharp wit honed from years in the White House press corps and ABC's political beat, leaned forward with a welcoming grin, extending his hand as Denzel settled into the plush interview chair. "Denzel, it's an absolute honor to have you back on Good Morning America," George began, his voice smooth and engaging, especially with the piano lesson-making waves. "Tell us, what drew you to direct this adaptation of August Wilson's masterpiece?" Denzel chuckled deeply, his laugh resonating like a bass note in A. Follow-up question landed like a well-aimed dart, slicing through the artistic reverie with journalistic acuity. "Denzel, in The Piano Lesson, your character confronts ghosts of the past, literally and figuratively. Many see parallels to ongoing debates about reparations and how America still owes a debt to its black citizens. Do you believe Hollywood, your industry, has done enough to address these ghosts in its own house, or is it time for real accountability?" The question, delivered with George's trademark blend of charm and challenge, was meant to elicit a soundbite, perhaps a nod to diversity initiatives or a call for more inclusive casting, but it struck a nerve raw from decades of Denzel's own battles against typecasting, underrepresentation, and the subtle racisms that permeate Tinseltown. Denzel's jaw tightened, his dark eyes locking onto George's with an intensity that made the veteran anchor shift ever so slightly in his seat. The studio's ambient hum fading into a charged silence broken only by the distant murmur of Times Square traffic filtering through the windows. "Accountability? George, let's talk real talk," Denzel retorted, his voice dropping to that gravelly timbre that commanded Oscar-winning performances, leaning forward as if to bridge the chasm between guest chair and anchor desk. "Hollywood loves to pat itself on the back for a Black Panther here or a Moonlight there, but behind the scenes? It's the same old plantation mentality. Executives greenlighting projects based on who fits their narrow vision of urban or diverse, while sidelining stories that demand we confront the ugliness head-on." Robin interjected softly, trying to steer with a compliment on Denzel's trailblazing career, but Denzel waved it off gently, his focus laser-sharp on George, who now wore a mask of professional neutrality tinged with surprise. Clash escalated as George's persistence clashed against Denzel's unyielding resolve, the airwaves crackling with the electricity of unspoken histories colliding in real time. "Denzel, you're a powerhouse, no doubt," George pressed, his tone diplomatic yet insistent, "but isn't calling out Hollywood's flaws here on national TV just another way to sell tickets? Some might say it's performative." The word performative hung like a gauntlet thrown, a subtle accusation of hypocrisy that ignited Denzel's famously controlled temper into a blaze. Rising halfway from his chair, Denzel pointed a steady finger, not in anger, but in emphasis, his voice booming with the authority of a preacher in the pulpit. "Performative? George, I've spent 40 years performing for the world, but this is me, raw and real, because if I don't say it here, on your platform with millions watching, then when? You want to talk sale? The real product being sold is silence, complacency, the myth that everything's fine because a few of us get to sip champagne at the Oscars while our stories get whitewashed." The studio gasped collectively, Robin's eyes widening in a mix of admiration and alarm, while Michael placed a steadying hand on the desk, his Super Bowl champion poise tested by the unfolding drama. Clips from Denzel's past roles flashed involuntarily on the screens, his fiery Alonzo Harris in Training Day, the unbowed Malcolm X, mirroring the man's live-wire energy, as if the actor had stepped out of character into unscripted fury. George's face flushed slightly under the lights, his quick mind racing for a recovery line, but Denzel was a tidal wave now, sweeping over interruptions with a torrent of examples. The shelved scripts by black writers, the directors passed over for safer choices, the way even progressive shows like this one tokenized guests into feel-good segments without delving into the rot beneath. Midway through the maelstrom, as Denzel's impassioned soliloquy reached its crescendo, The commercial break finally crashed in like a merciful lifeline, the band's upbeat sting signaling a pause that felt anything but ordinary. But Denzel, true to his method-acting roots, refused the respite, his voice carrying over the fade to black. And that's not even the half of it. Let's talk about how networks prioritize clickbait over context. The mics cut abruptly, but the damage, or revelation, was done, the control room abuzz with frantic strategizing as floor directors signaled for calm. When the show returned, the set had been subtly reset, water glasses refilled, notepads straightened, but the atmosphere hummed with residual voltage, like the aftermath of a thunderstorm. George, ever the professional, opened with a light pivot to a fan question submitted via social media. Denzel, before we dive deeper, a viewer from Chicago asks, what advice would you give young black actors navigating these very waters? It was a deft maneuver, aiming to humanize and de-escalate, but Denzel seized it like a lifeline to launch into a heartfelt advisory laced with the same unfiltered edge. To the kids out there, don't wait for permission. Study the greats, Poitier, Goldberg, Boseman, but more importantly, study the streets, the history books, the pain in your grandma's stories. Hollywood will try to box you in, label you the angry black man like they're doing to me right now. He shot a pointed glance at George, who maintained a stoic smile. But flip that script. Channel it. Make them uncomfortable because comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is the enemy of change. Robin chimed in with a story of her own battles in broadcast journalism, forging a momentary alliance that softened the edges, while Michael shared a nod to his days as a player facing media biases, creating a tapestry of shared. As the interview barreled toward its denouement, the undercurrents of the clash rippled outward, pulling in broader themes that elevated the exchange from personal spat to cultural referendum. Denzel, sensing the arc bending toward resolution, steered the conversation toward hope, his voice modulating from thunder to thoughtful timbre. Look, George, this isn't about bridges burned, it's about building better ones. The piano lesson isn't just my film, it's a hand extended to audiences, black and white, to sit with discomfort, to play that piano of history until the notes harmonize. George's response was measured, a blend of concession and counterpoint, acknowledging the film's timeliness amid national reckonings on race post-2020, yet gently reminding viewers of Hollywood's incremental wins, like the surge in streaming platforms amplifying diverse voices. The anchors flanked him, Robin sharing a poignant memory of interviewing August Wilson himself decades prior, Michael cracking a self-deprecating joke about his own piano lessons in football locker rooms, diffusing any lingering frost with levity. Yet Denzel's core message persisted, a drumbeat of insistence on systemic overhaul, citing statistics he'd memorized from recent NAACP reports. The paltry 7% of directors who are people of color, the wage gaps that persist despite star power. He challenged George directly again, you've covered elections, impeachments, wars of words. Apply that scrutiny to entertainment, hold the studios accountable like you do the Senate. The anchor's laugh was genuine this time, a bridge of sorts as he quipped, point taken Denzel, you'd make a hell of a Sunday guest. The banter elicited audience laughter, a release valve after the pressure build, but Denzel's eyes twinkled with unresolved fire, hinting at off-air conversations yet to come.